Welcome to this November 11th edition of the Courier Sports Department's Paperboyz. I'm Doug Newhoff. To my left is Jim Sullivan, and to my right is Jim Nelson. Let's get this started with a little bit of college football today. You and I continue to trend in an upward direction. Iowa State just kind of seems to be spinning its wheels right now. Hawkeyes put together another good effort on the road, went to Indiana, got away with a 35-27 win. The Panthers put one on Indiana State, 59-13 for their third straight win. And Iowa State ran into an Oklahoma team that's pretty darn good and got beat 52-16. Now with 3 games left, the Hawkeyes are up to number 5 in the college football playoff rankings, which is significant. Because if they can win out, they have 3 games remaining against Minnesota, Purdue, and Nebraska, and they win those 3 games. That potentially sets up a Big Ten championship game for a berth in the college football playoff. Am I correct?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Potentially, yeah.
So that's significant that they jumped that far from 9 to 5. Put them in a pretty good position if they can take care of their business the rest of the way. First up, of course, for the Hawkeyes, they have to deal with Minnesota. It's cliche, but you can throw the records out the window when these 2 teams play. You never know what's going to happen with the Gophers and the Hawkeyes. What do you guys think about this one?
This is a game to me, and I admit bias here because I'm a Minnesota graduate, that Iowa should win handily. I'm sort of a negative guy that way. And I realize that unpredictable things can happen, but it's all set up pretty well for Iowa. If you want to go to motivation, they got the doors blown off by the Gophers last year in Minneapolis. If you want to go just to numbers, Iowa is better statistically in every category than Minnesota. They're the number 1 team in the Big Ten Conference in turnover margin, and Minnesota is a minus, I believe. Minnesota's in a little bit of turmoil. Jerry Kilda had to step down for health reasons, and Tracy Claeys has just been signed as the new head coach, but he's 0-2 in Minnesota's first 2 games under him as the head coach. And where Iowa's had its share of significant injuries, Minnesota's had maybe more. One of their best defensive backs just went out for the year, for example, a kid named Myrick. So, on paper, as we like to say, this is a game that favors Iowa in many respects. Now all Iowa has to do is go out and win it and pad its resume as much as it possibly can heading into the next week of college football rankings.
Yeah, as much as you say that, I look at that first game with the Clays as head coach, and they should have had a chance to beat Michigan right in the last second there, and I think it got reversed. They scored a touchdown, took the touchdown away right at the end, the last closing seconds against Michigan, and that would have been maybe that was an emotional win for them, but they have been in turmoil, and they're all kinds of injury problems. So but Iowa, they just find a way to do it and get it done, and I was watching that. I watched the game. I DVR'd the game, and I was watching it on Sunday. And they got ahead. They're going to run away from Indiana. And then Indiana came back and took the lead. Then Iowa kind of took over from there. It was really kind of impressive.
I think the key for Minnesota is their quarterback. I mean, if Iowa can do some things to put some pressure on him and not let him really set up and get the passing game going, they should be fine. Let's talk a little bit about UNI. They head down to Missouri State Saturday afternoon for a game against one of their former assistant coaches, Mario Verduzco. When Dave Steckel
Yep.
became the head coach at Missouri State, him and Mario are good friends from way back, so Mario decided to join him down there and try and help rebuild that program after Terry Allen's run down there. So right now the Bears are not a good team. They're 1-8. I think they've scored 7 points or fewer in like 6 of their 9 games. They're having a hard time getting it going, which is what happens when you have a coach like they had with Terry Allen in the last couple of years. He was kind of in a situation where nobody knew if he was going to be back or not the following year, so it's got to be hard to recruit to that. And now these guys are trying to rebuild it, and apparently they're going to have to do it from the ground up.
Yeah, they're statistically everywhere across the board they're not having a good year. Their only wins over a Division II team, and that's the only team they've held to fewer than 38 points in the game. And they've given up more than 40, I think, 5 times. So it's just been a real struggle for them. And you look at the Valley stats, and they rank last in just about every category you can think, except for rushing offense. So on paper it's a mismatch, but you talk to the Panthers. I talked to Isaac Alls, and he goes, Alis, and he said, this is the game. We're going to do the same thing we've done the last 3 weeks, and during the UNI's 3-game win streak, we're going to look at Indiana State. We're going to fix what we think's fixable and try to get better this week. And if we try to overlook these guys, they're going to put a game together and give us all kinds of problems. And we just need to go take our business. I think that was basically the message he delivered.
That's just it. I mean, it's the Super Bowl for Missouri State. I mean, if they will give you and I everything they've got and their best effort, and if the ball doesn't bounce the right way, and all of a sudden you're behind by 2 touchdowns, there's a couple turnovers come into play. You better be focused and take care of business and not look past this one. If you're you and I, they're 2 wins away now from a probable FCS playoff berth, and this is definitely one that you can't stumble in.
Yeah, I think they can go out and make another statement, and do what everybody else does and really put one on them and kind of build their resume a little bit. I mean, not resume, but as far as maybe some style points here, Coach Farley isn't big on style points, but go out there. If they win their last 2, playoff berth probably, home game maybe, and it'd be nice to have a first round playoff game, home game.
I was a little surprised, maybe you guys weren't, but I think you and I only moved up 2 spots in the national poll, despite putting a serious beatdown on Indiana State, which was ranked 23rd. So you get you beat another top 25 team, and you only move up 2 spots in the poll. What does that say?
Yeah, that was interesting. I think that's the coaches poll where they moved up from like 21 to 19, and they stayed right at 17 in the stats poll, the FCS stats poll. And so I thought they would move up a couple spots. If you look at it, you can see why everybody that's ranked ahead of them has got 2 or fewer losses, and you can kind of get that. And they got 4. They're 5-4, but still, with their losses, you got to look at who they've lost to. They've lost to 2 teams ranked in the top 10, and they've gotten 2 wins over 2 teams in the top 10. So,
yeah, but they lost 3 early games, and they were still in the top 10.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they didn't fall. The bottom didn't fall out until they lost to Western Illinois, and now they just they don't seem to be getting any respect nationally.
Yeah,
interesting. Iowa State didn't fare too well against Oklahoma. This week they got to go deal with undefeated and number 5 Oklahoma State Saturday at Jack Trice.
Yeah, 2:30.
2:30. Okay. So do the Cyclones have a little of that upset magic left in their tank that they seem to come up with every year?
Well, it's interesting because one of the lines of inquiry out of Ames on Monday with Paul Rhodes was how much does this feel like 2011? If you recall, at that point, at the exact same time of year, Oklahoma State went into Jack Trice with a chance to play for the BCS championship as it was then, and no one gave Iowa State much of a chance to win. Lo and behold, they won. It's roughly the same situation this year, with a couple of exceptions. One is, I don't know if Iowa State's in the same place it was emotionally 4 years ago, and Oklahoma State may have more to play for then than it did now than it did then even. It's all right in front of them. If they beat Iowa State, they've got Baylor and Oklahoma, 2 ranked teams ahead. They can win out, and who knows what's going to happen with the rankings, but at least they'll be in position to make a legitimate claim for a top 4 spot. So it is kind of like 2011. Then again, it's a different year, different team, different personnel. And Iowa State's got a chance, I suppose, if it does those things you have to do, take care of the football. Oklahoma State makes a couple of mistakes, and we'll see. But this is the latest mile on a tough road for a team that's struggling to get victories.
What I recall from that week, I was covering the Cyclones then, is, well, there's two things that I really remember. That was the day after the night before the game is when the Oklahoma State had the big crash, and they lost the basketball players and their announcer and some boosters, and they were still reeling from that, and they still played the game. The other thing is, I think Iowa State was in a much similar situation. They needed a win to make a bowl game. And basically the feeling was, I think the feeling maybe from the fans was, boy, we don't have a shot at a bowl. And and then they got behind at halftime. It was something like 21-3 at half or something. They were down by a couple scores, it seemed like, and then it just mounted a huge. And so you thought, okay, this thing is over. And then they made that huge rally in the second half and win in overtime. It was incredible, and that propelled them, I believe, into the Pinstripe Bowl. It was a great win.
You know, it's interesting, Iowa State can talk about drawing on that experience in 2011 for motivation on their side, and Oklahoma State can talk about the same thing. I mean, they can draw on that game for
Sure, no
motivation
question.
from their
No question.
perspective too. They don't want to let that happen again, so that'll be an interesting game. I would expect Oklahoma State will find a way to win that one, and so be it. I've got a question for you guys that I thought of yesterday. Who's doing the best job this season, as the best coaching job this season in college football? You know, a few names come to mind. Dabo Swinney at Clemson, he's got the #1 team in the country. I don't know a lot about them, except I keep reading how talented they are and how good they are. We got Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. His first year, I mean, the cupboard apparently wasn't bare. He's found a way to put together a pretty good football team up there. Art Briles down at Baylor, he's doing it again. Lost his quarterback, and he plugs another one in. Away they go. And then you got Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. He's got the Irish in the national playoff conversation. And you know, my personal favorite, how about Kirk Ferentz?
Well, I was just going to go there. I think he'd be a strong candidate for that. It's amazing how a couple of years ago, Stuart Mandel called him one of the worst coaches in college football. Now here he is with a team with 9-0. So either he got a lot smarter, or Stuart Mandel might have been colossally wrong a couple of years ago. It's a remarkable story. We've touched on it before, and for all the talk of new Kirk, old Kirk, and I'm sure he's made some changes. To me, it's just good old-fashioned Kirk Ferentz football that's carrying this team to a large degree.
It is.
Here's another candidate for you that's a little bit obvious. How about Nick Saban? Now, Nick Saban is expected to win down there every year, but they had real quarterback issues at the start of the year. They lost a game to Mississippi at home, I believe, and now here they are. They're in the top 4 as it stands now.
If they lost a game, they're done.
Okay.
End of conversation.
Brian Kelly, though, is a good one. Brian Kelly is...
If you are Nick Saban and you are Alabama, you do not lose a game, and be in our conversation for best coach of the year.
You know, you looked at it. You know, you got to like what Harbaugh's done, and you look at it. You know, if you have 2 quarterbacks, they always say you don't have. If you have rotating quarterbacks, you don't have a good one. Well, Iowa's got C.J. Beathard's 9-0, and Ruddock has got Michigan playing really well up there, and they're 7-2. So
Ruddock's another interesting story.
Yeah.
You know, early in the year, the fans were ready to run him off. I mean, he was committing 3 or 4 turnovers a game. Even Harbaugh was like kind of on the bubble, on the fence a little bit about how he was playing. And then after this past week, he pronounced him as a NFL caliber quarterback. So, you know, things change from week to week and from day to day, I guess, in college football anymore. Let's talk a little bit of basketball as well. It's opening week for our college men's teams, women's teams too, I guess. Iowa plays Friday night. They've got Gardner Webb, another one of those cupcakes that they tend to fatten up on early in their non-conference seasons every year. Iowa State and their new coach, Steve Prohm, they have a little bit more challenging game. They play Colorado in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, I believe. That'll be an interesting matchup. But, you know, for me, the most compelling one is going to take place here in the McLeod Center. Colorado State is coming in for an 11 a.m. game Saturday, and they are coached by former Iowa State coach Larry Eustachy. Sully, you're going to be there for that game. You probably looked at it a little bit. What do you think?
Well, I think Ben Jacobson has said a couple times it's a pretty challenging opener, and it certainly would look that way. Colorado State comes in off a 27-7 year. They lost several people. They have a couple of starters back, a couple other people who played a little bit off the bench. A transfer from Southern Illinois who's going to help them. Sounds like he's going to start. So I think the physicality of that team concerns them a little bit. It's interesting, the voters in the Mountain West Conference poll, and this is part of that Mountain West Valley Challenge, the voters in the Mountain West Conference poll put Colorado State 7th in their preseason poll, which is interesting, except that according to their press notes, every year Colorado State has finished better than it's predicted since Eustachy's gotten there. I think there are a couple other things you can expect from a Larry Eustachy team. I think they'll play very, very hard defensively. They'll hang their hat on that. So you and I will be tested that way. And then from you and I's side, we'll find out a couple things. Number one, how healthy Paul Jesperson actually is, if he can stand up for extended playing time. We'll find out a little bit of something about two of the big men they have inside replacing Powell, Bennett Cook and Ted Freeman, Clint Carlson, not yet eligible to play. And 3, we'll get a little bit better idea of how much Wes Washburn's going to mean to this year's team. Certainly he's the guy that's going to be the leader. And then we'll see how they shake out with what would probably be a 3-guard forward center offense, or maybe possibly 4 guards at times. So there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts to this one. It should be a fun game to watch, and whenever you have Larry Eustace around, one way or another, it's going to be entertaining.
No, yeah, I'm really excited to see how this team goes. And they must be confident with what they're getting in the middle, because he announced on Monday, I think Coach Jacobson did, that they're going to redshirt the two freshman bigs that they got coming in. So they must be confident they got a good enough mix with those 3 guys, or confident enough that they can go, like you said, with a 4-guard, 1-post type lineup.
What about a 5-guard lineup at times? I mean, I could see a situation where they put Washburn, Bohannon, Jeremy Morgan, Arias Austin, who by all accounts is a really good addition to this team and a really talented player, and Wyatt Lohaus, and put those 5 guys out there. You wouldn't want to do it for extended periods, but you could do it for a couple minute stretch here and a couple minute stretch there, throw them into full court pressure, drop back into a 3-point type of offense, maybe change the game pretty significantly in a short amount of time with that lineup.
I was going to say that, that would be a really good change of pace rotation to have out there. If let's say you and I, for whatever reason, plays a little bit of sluggish basketball earlier in the middle of the game, you could go to that rotation, and I think with just the quickness and speed you have out there and the shooting capability, you can speed things up a little bit. Now, Ben Jacobson is not the sort of coach that wants to go up and down the floor for 40 minutes, but I think there are times when he will speed it up, he will press, and certainly with the guys that he has on that team now, he can do that with 5 guards.
And they're big guards, so you don't really necessarily sacrifice that much rebounding.
Right.
And when you're running a 3-point type of offense too, a lot of the rebounds are long rebounds, so you don't get beat up too bad under the boards. I can see it being an asset for you and I to go that direction for short periods of time this season. Talking with Coach Jacobson on Monday, he seemed pretty confident that Jesperson's going to be able to play significantly. He played a lot in that scrimmage that they had Saturday against Wisconsin. I think he also is pretty confident that this group of guys will be able to come together and put together a pretty good season.
I would think so. I mean, it all depends on where your expectations lie. Does the public expect 30 victories again? I would hope not. That's tough to do at any level for any team at any time. But certainly this team can put itself in the mix for the Valley, for a top spot in the Valley, perhaps even challenge for the title, depending on how some of these other schools shake out. It's a sort of team that's now shown it can win again at the Valley Tournament. So it has that going for it, and above all, it's experienced. It's got people who have been through the wars, and I don't think much is going to shake and rattle this bunch. I think they're going to be fine. So they're as ready as they'll ever be.
There are 2 things about you and I with Coach Jacobson. They will play hard, and they will play they'll be pretty well coached. I mean, they won't make a lot of mistakes. They won't hurt themselves a lot. So we'll see that, and he really likes the people that he has. As far as the new rules go, he said they really didn't notice that any of the mistakes that they made against Wisconsin could be attributed to the new rules regarding defense and shot clock and all of those kind of things. Mostly they were mistakes that they would have made regardless of where things were rule-wise in basketball. So that adjustment has gone well. One thing I wonder about with the 30-second shot clock is I think you and I had an advantage last year in particular, and when they had Farouk Manesh, that team too was a pretty good defensive team, but they could defend you for 35 seconds and do it at a high level. Now other teams only have to do it for 30 seconds, so does it even the playing field a little bit there defensively?
Possibly. My only observation of it, the new rules, of course, came in the exhibition game at Truman State, and that's an extremely small sample size. I got the feeling that certainly offensively it didn't bother you and I very much. That may change as they play a better defensive team. I don't think they had much trouble with it from a defensive standpoint. Again, we will know more. We may know more this Saturday once they get against a team that's a little bit more physical and bigger and stronger. And then we get down the road a little bit and see Wichita State, a team that has some guys who can fill it up a little bit, how that'll work out. So I don't know. I think you and I can can defend to any length of a shot clock. We'll see how it works out, but
I think you and I can, but my question is, does it now enable other teams to do that better than they were before, since they don't have to do it for 35 seconds?
by losing the additional 5 seconds.
Right.
Possibly, sure.
Yeah, I wonder if, I mean, a rule that's intended to increase offense in college basketball to some degree may actually have the opposite effect and make teams a little bit better defensively.
That's certainly possible. A lot will depend too on how teams finally get around to coaching offense. I mean, it seems to me that one of the things that has been lost over time has been, it's been talked about the mid-range game, that sort of thing, not relying as much on the three. So, and better overall post play. We'll see how that arc affects that, how the new rules down there will affect post play and let people have a little bit more freedom. That may be more important in the end than the shot clock.
True, that will be interesting to watch how that develops and how people use that. Nellie, you were at Wartburg's Winter Media Day. The wrestling team looks good again, number one in the country, kind of got a chip on their shoulder, not winning the national championship last year. Just give us a quick takeaway of what you saw from the Knights.
It's going to be a very good team. You know, early on they're going to be missing some key guys. They got 3 guys that just have a semester of eligibility left. Kenny Martin, the returning national champion at 49, will be back at the semester. Drew Wagenhofer, 2-time All-American, he'll be back at the semester at 157. And then their heavyweight Ben Nagel, an All-American last year, he'll be back at the semester. But you know, they don't have any proven commodity at 25. But everywhere else they have somebody. The intriguing prospect or the guy is former Waverly Shellrock State champion Eric DeVos. He's been at Penn. He's been at Iowa. He was in the Iowa room for a while, and now he's in there. And they say he's been setting the standard in the room, and he'll be at 174. And it'll be interesting to see where he's at. So they're the favorites going in. You know, last year they weren't the favorites because they were unknown. They graduated a huge senior class the year before, and now this year it's a little bit of different perspective, and they are hungry.
It's interesting reading your story from yesterday. I think Eric Keller is like a clone of Jim Miller. I mean, he started to sound exactly like him.
Oh yeah, yep. They got very similar philosophies, and they got Jim out of the big office now, and Eric's got the big office because even after Jim stepped down, he still had the big office. Well, they moved him a little bit across the hallway, and Eric's got the big office now. But Coach Milboy is still only about 5 feet away, 5-10 feet.
That's interesting. It's fun to have a program like that in our backyard that sets the standards so high and achieves at such a high level year after year after year. So good luck to the Knights this season. I think they get started this weekend too, don't they?
Yeah, they're at the Luther Open. I think in previous years Iowa has sent a lot of their guys up to. Well, they won't, but they'll probably send a lot of their red shirts. So obviously Iowa's wrestling in the grapple on the gridiron against Oklahoma State. 33,000 tickets sold there at Kinney Stadium. So, but Iowa will probably send a lot of the guys that aren't going to be in their main lineup, their red shirt freshmen and the lot. So it'll be good test.
Very good. We better wrap this up for today. It's a big week in high school athletics with the prep football playoffs going on in the Unidome Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I believe. We've got state volleyball going on in Cedar Rapids. We started with 8 Northeast Iowa teams down there. 7 of them are still playing as of today, so it'll be a busy week down there. But as always, you can catch all of the action at www.wcfcourier.com or in our print editions. We'll see you next week.